Hello everyone, I am Hema Chenupati, Board Advisor for the Acumen International School. Welcome to the Acumen Ed Talks. Today we are privileged to have Ms. Adi Lakshmi with us. She is an accomplished educationist in India as well as abroad. She is an experienced and accomplished educator with more than 30 years experience in working with both Indian and international curriculums in the K-12 sector. She has deep knowledge of managing multiple stream education institutes across the IB, CBSE and Cambridge programs. Being an early years specialist, she also has expertise in areas of curriculum design, faculty training, technology integration, coaching and consulting. She is passionate about developing strong values and 21st century skills. The topic for today is observing to understand, using child development to inform teaching. Ms. Adi Lakshmi has many years of experience of teaching as well as leading teaching. And today we would like to ask her a few questions about how we can use the pre-existing knowledge of children in classrooms and how we observe them. And from that observation, we take it forward into altering or making changes in our teaching and learning as well. What does it really mean to observe a child in an education setting, ma'am?
So, observation is a way of recording children's growth and development. And what happens is that, especially in the early years, they are not growing or developing at a particular time. It's a continuous, consistent process of growing. And we know that the first 2000 days of the children are very relevant to their growth and development. There are spurts of growth. And Maria Montessori calls this the sensitive period of a child. And she says that she talks about the absorbent mind, where the children are really absorbing everything that there is in the environment. And then it all gets consolidated, and at a particular time, there is an explosion into that activity. Like, for instance, for parents, each milestone of the child, when you say that the child learns to crawl or the child learns to stand or walk, you will see that a child is really struggling with the process and then making all those efforts. So that constantly goes on. I mean, every time the child is laying on the back, he will try to turn. And once he's turned, he will try to move and crawl, or the child will try to stand. But then there will be a point where, they've got the confidence, the ability, the muscles are properly strengthened, and the child is able to stand. So what parents and caregivers can do best at this time is to provide that right environment for the child to achieve that milestone. So that's a very clear physical example, we can see to understand that children need constant support. They grow, the development takes place continuously, and then they reach a point where they explode into that activity. And then, there's no stopping them. So it's the same thing in a classroom. The learning is happening continuously because they are developing their knowledge, their skills, their attitude, and there are several skills. There are motor skills, large motor skills, fine motor skills. There is the cognition which is developing. So we cannot, say that at a particular time is when the child will be right for a particular activity. What we need to do is, as adults, teachers and caregivers, consistently observe the child. And observation has to be intentional. When you watch the child in a classroom setting, you're looking at what is the child able to do, and then you're designing your curriculum around the ability of the child. So the child's capacities and readiness will determine the curriculum. Okay. Rather than the other way around, where you go with a fixed curriculum and say that this is what the child has to do, and then enforce that in the classroom. So that's one of the most important elements of early childhood and primary school learning, is where teachers constantly observe the children in a prepared classroom setting.
Yes.
So how do I set up the environment and how do I set up the classroom so that the child is able to engage in different kind of activities get a range of experiences which I'm watching and recording, and then modifying the teaching and learning based on the needs of the child.
Next, I would like to ask you how teachers use observation to adapt learning to individual children.
Yeah, I mean, like when teachers are observant, and observation means they are listening to the child, they are watching the child, and they are using every opportunity to be able to support the child. So, for instance, like for example, if the child is reluctant to write or is struggling to write, and the teacher observes that, this child is not ready, then while watching the child in maybe a play activity or while doing puzzles or working with blocks, uh, the teacher may find that the child hasn't developed adequate pincer grip. And, the fine motor coordination is still not set, which is why, when the child holds a pencil or a writing instrument, there is maybe the pain in the fingers or the child is not ready to take on that activity. Then the teacher can encourage the child to do other activities where, the pincer with the grip is developed further, like holding pegboards or clips and Play-Doh activities and different fine motor coordination activities where this fine motor coordination gets enhanced, the pincer grip gets enhanced. And if the child is not using the pencil with confidence, then just tracing with the fingers. The child can trace in the sand, trace in the air, trace on the body, and make these movements which are similar to writing, but not exactly writing at that time. So by developing this kind of a model, the teacher is able to prepare the child for that step. If writing is a milestone, which needs to be accomplished, and you have to use a writing instrument like a crayon or a pencil, but an observant teacher will lead to it through some of these activities. And so she will design those engagements and activities for the child to do, which will help to develop this capacity, and then the child will more comfortably be able to take on writing. So recording this and then making sure that the teacher is modifying the way or
she deals with that particular.
Instead of, just having a structured way of learning where you say that, every child has to be able to write or, write the letters of the alphabet. But if you are allowing the child to be watched and then looking at the prior skills that are needed to reach that milestone, there will be more chances of success for the child, and they will do it joyfully, and there will be greater sense of accomplishment.
It would be more systematic.
Sure. Yeah.
So isn't it a little challenging for the teacher though, because there are a number of students in the classroom and having to work with maybe a class of 20 and each child is reaching the milestones at a different stage. So what are the skills that the teacher would know? What, from a management point of view, what are the things that we should be doing for the teacher to help her deal with the situation like that?
Yeah. So observation in early childhood, so one is we look at the ratio of number of student-teacher ratio. Normally in a classroom, earliest classroom, if there are 2 teachers and maybe about 20 students, that's the normal number, 20 to 25 students, you have a ratio of about 1:10 or 1:12 for the teacher to observe. And so the day is set up in such a way where intentionally the teacher is planning, which will be direct observations. And sometimes there are some moments where you hear a conversation. So every time that there is a play activity happening or there is a learning activity happening, then teachers can watch, hear, and observe. So observation is also a skill. And it's not just listening, but observing with intention. So this is something that teachers are trained to do. Also, we have technology. They either video record or they can take photographs, which they can then watch later on. And they anecdote. See, the important thing in early childhood is that children are not able to write.
Right.
So there are their thoughts which are auditory. So they are vocal. So they say things, whether it's circle time or during play, during group play, and you have to capture those conversations.
Yes.
Because it's not recorded in writing. So teachers need to capture some of those conversations, and then either you understand what is the child thinking, how is their mind functioning, or you also use it as a teaching moment later when you come back to the child and say, this is what you said at that time. Now do you think differently, or would you do it differently? So there you stimulate the child to think further on something that they had said previously. So this is a skill that teachers develop.
I think even also the way the classroom is set up, the learning centers, and maybe the play-based learning as well. Yeah, these also do help.
Sure. And recording is very important.
Recording.
How the teachers record their observations. A lot of teachers use anecdotal records. They create learning stories for the students.
Yeah.
So they have ways in which they can put all this together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, I think the recording and observation notes help when the child moves to the next grade.
Very true.
Because then the teacher who's taking up that child will see that and then take off from there.
It's a continuous journey that the child is going through. So in some schools, the teacher moves with the child.
Yes.
So at least in the early years. So they are with the child for at least 2-3 years. So that, there's consistency in the way the child is growing. Because again, children have different times when they reach each milestone. But even if the teacher is changing, you have this record of the child's learning, and all these observations can then be shared with the other teacher.
The other part of it is, how do we communicate it to parents?
Yeah.
Because I think parents are generally very involved. Yeah. And want to know exactly where their child is at. And, they want to constantly compare with others. So how does a teacher communicate that to a parent in a way that the parent understands and appreciates what the teacher is doing? Actually.
So it's actually a partnership.
Yeah.
So especially in these early years and the early primary, learning is in partnership. The whole child development happens in partnership between the school, the child, and the parent. So and it has to be continuous. So we say that recording of observation and learning has to be like a photo album and not a snapshot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
when you do a one-time observation or a one-time result or a one-time assessment, it's just a snapshot. But what we are looking at is a continuous story of growth. It's like, that flip book which you make. So in that case, the frequency has to be more. Sometimes even daily sharing of, what the child has been able to do.
Milestone
within the school. Especially like, in some of the environments like the Reggio environment, there is a continuous documentation process. It's a very strong process of documentation of the child's conversations, activities, and interactions with different things in the environment, whether with peers, whether with spaces, whether with material, and all that is recorded and shared. And we have a lot of applications now. Technology is available, so there are many applications where children's pictures or videos or conversations
where the
shared.
Student portfolio.
Yes.
Instead of a report card, we move to a portfolio.
Yes. So portfolio is a wonderful tool to record this journey and share it with the parents, because the learning doesn't stop at school. It continues at home. And unless the parent is aware of what the child learnt at school, they won't be able to support that so effectively at home. Yeah.
So that's where the connection between the parent has to be very strong, and school has to involve parents in the learning journey of
Yeah.
So that, of course, we've spoken about observations and all, but assessments of children are also very important. So how do we then ensure that there is a correlation between the observation and the assessment?
So this is a measurement of progress of the child.
Yeah.
Like I told you, it's a continuous process, but at some points you want a checkpoint,
Yes.
has the child achieved the milestone that is required? Would there be some need to change direction? So naturally, there will be some assessments which are designed with intention. And so teachers will design those assessments. It's not like a test or it's not like an examination,
Yeah.
but the teacher knows that, okay, I'm going to, they will use a strategy for assessment and maybe a tool like a rubric or a checklist to determine where the child is at that particular time. And then they will administer that assessment and it's done periodically.
And I think it's important for us to ensure that the parents understand our observation process and our assessment process so that they're also aligned. Then they need to know that they need to know that we are taking care of their children and taking them in that direction.
So the observation tools are very specific and they're very scientifically designed. Teachers can use these tools because under each of the capacities that the child has to develop and the skills that have to be developed along with the sub-skills are all recorded. And it could either be a checklist or a rubric or the way in which or an anecdotal record. And this is documented so that you can see the transition from one phase to the other phase and how the child is moving. And there are many of them which are interconnected. So like cognitive ability along with fine motor coordination. So you have to look at that capacity.
Yeah, so they're educating the parent on fitness is very important. But I think we're happy that at Acumen we are definitely addressing some of these issues. One is, of course, the student-teacher ratio. Then the strong communication system we want to build with the parents and ensuring that they are part of the learning journey of their children as well. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts and views on this. I'm sure we'll reach out to you for more such discussions. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. It's been my absolute pleasure to come and look at your school, your classrooms, and also to be able to share some of my thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.